It's finally that time. Thank you for taking the time today to join us for our second last open source training episode in our series today. I actually can't believe it that it's our second last. I think we've had a really good run this year. And of course, it's all thanks to you, our community, because you pitch up and you join us every month to share and learn knowledge and to engage with us, with other like-minded individuals who are also curious about learning and wanting to equip themselves for the future world of work. Today, we have a host of different organizations that have registered for our session, a true reflection that no matter what industry or what country you're from, we can always find time to connect and come together to learn. So some of those companies are Drake International, Sigma, Webhelp, Woolworths, Curo, Faircape, Engine, the Western Cape government, just some of them that my eye's falling onto at the moment, but of course to everyone else that is registered and who will be joining us, we are so grateful that you're going to be making our session today. I'm just going to quickly take this opportunity to share a link in the chat box. This is a survey for all of our topics that we are thinking to run for next year. So we'd love to hear from you. 5 questions, yes or no, and a recommendation section at the bottom. Let us know what you're thinking and what we should be running next year. Have your say. It's important. So whilst you do that, I just want to run through some housekeeping rules. I know it's a little bit of a pain. You've heard it all before because you've attended all these virtual events, but of course I've been tasked to do this, so I'm going to try to run through it as quickly as possible. Please, microphones off. If you have any questions, make use of our chat box. We have our chat curators that are on standby, and please ensure that you engage each other. The team will also be online for 5 minutes after the event, so if you have any questions, just hang around. And a reminder that we'll also be recording the session and we'll be sending you the recording along with the slide deck sometime next week. All right, finally, enough of the admin. Now we've got the admin out of the way. Now it's time to introduce you to our facilitators for the evening. We have digital enablement and sales. They're joining forces today to bring you service orientation in Industry 4.0. This afternoon's topic is centered around people, tech, and processes, an intricate part of any successful digital transformation strategy. I have my colleagues Jene-Maree and Dani, who have all been a part of our organization's digital transformation journey over the past 5 years. So enough from me now, over to you, ladies.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dani, would you like to reintroduce yourself there for a quick moment?
Of course. Sorry, I think we had a technical glitch. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really happy that all of you have decided to join us this afternoon. My name is Dani and I'm Omni Sales Manager.
And I'm Jene-Maree, the Digital Enablement Manager here at Omni, and welcome to the Service Orientation in Industry 4.0 open source training session. Before we look into the role that technology can play in driving a service-oriented organization, I think it's important to recognize firstly that neither service orientation or technology are new concepts. In fact, if we reflect on the video we have just watched, it is plain to see that they have walked a very long journey together, with each being a key driving force of the other, continuously unlocking new potential and possibilities and becoming more fundamentally interwoven and interconnected. Additionally, both concepts' core purpose is to serve us, the people of this world, in a multitude of ways with the aim of meeting our needs. Now, the latest revolutionizing contribution that technology has made to service orientation is the Internet of Services. Much like the Internet of Things, which simply put is the connection of devices to the Internet so they can interact with other devices, the Internet of Services connects both human and technology-driven services. The term services in this instance is very broad in its interpretation, and the concept relies on the concepts of service-oriented architecture and Web 2.0.
100% Jean-Marie. It's all about bridging the gap between services, systems, and human connection, and at the same time focusing on expansion, modernization, and the automation of skills.
Exactly. And above that, if we recognize that technology is the equivalent of tools comparable to that of hammers and drills that have been created for us to use and leverage instead of a threat, which is often the way it is perceived and treated, then we have already made a giant leap towards becoming service-oriented. Now, to become service-oriented organization, you have to consider and review your organization design in terms of policies, procedures, processes, tools, systems, and culture in the context of the 6 core Industry 4.0 design principles, which are interoperability, modularity, decentralization, real-time analytics, virtualization, and service orientation. This in its own right is no simple task, and in all reality, it is not even a task, but rather a process that the organization undertakes as it evolves and transforms. To learn more about the role that technology can play in your organization or more about the 6 core design principles, check out our Workforce 2030 service orientation course. Speaking of, Dani, would you like to tell the audience about the competition we have for them today?
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, later in our presentation, we'll be giving away some lucky participants access to our OmniStack service orientation module as a prize. The guidelines are super easy to follow, and they are: once you hear the bell ringing, everyone in the room will be asked a simple question about some of the content that is shared this evening. The first correct answer, of course, wins. Our Workforce 2030 service orientation module will be made available to the winner and a colleague of their choice. Our runner-up will also receive access to our service orientation module, but of course only for themselves. And then, if you're an internal staff member joining us tonight, we see you, we appreciate you, and we respectfully ask that you sit this one out.
All right, and just for those who'd like to know what that sound is that they need to listen out for, here it goes as a bit of a preview.
Awesome.
All right, and remember, it's fastest finger first, and we'll announce the winners at the end. So Dani, now that we have a better idea of how service orientation has evolved and what is required to become a service-oriented organization, why is service orientation important in our current landscape?
Jean-Marie, it's important because it allows businesses, cyber-physical systems, and even people to make their services accessible to other entities. This not only broadens the access to current services, but also makes it possible for us to develop entirely new categories of service. If you have a look here, you'll see that according to a 2018 study by the World Economic Forum, these are the 10 most critical skills required by organizations worldwide to implement disruptive transformation. In a span of 5 years, the fundamental skill set for the future has altered, yet some have remained indispensable. If you look at complex problem solving, continuing to be at the forefront of disruptive change, we see it. But then we also have innovation and creativity, which are regarded as crucial for future work environments.
As it stands now, Dani, these stats give us a good historical view. But what does the requirements look like going forward as we approach 2030? And why is this so important in the context of creating a service-oriented organization?
So, Jene-Maree, upskilling and equipping our workforces with the tools that they will need to succeed in the modern workplace is a crucial component of making sure our organizations are prepared for the evolution of business. As illustrated by this infographic, service orientation is one of the core required skills for future organizational success. The manner in which we provide customer service and drive customer experience within our organizations has shifted, and it had to have shifted. If we as businesses want to innovate into the future and excel, then we will need to adapt. So it does beg the question, have we adequately prepared our employees for the future? How do these 2030 workforce skills relate to customer service and customer experience? If you take a step back, businesses no longer have the luxury of merely handing their new recruits scripts, releasing them into the world of work to navigate through their policies and their procedures on their own, and then evaluating their work efficacy. If our employees are not appropriately upskilled and reskilled to implement service orientation from within our organizations, we will fail. So, having said that, I'm sure many of us sitting here this evening are left wondering whether our organizations have service orientation strategies. And if they do, when was the last time we reviewed them? And then again, is it standard procedure for all businesses to have one?
So true, Dani. And it's not just service orientation, but all of these skills that will be required in all spaces at all levels. For example, if we just consider judgment and decision making, which we discussed in last month's open source training session, each individual in our organization is currently making judgments and decisions on various scales that directly or indirectly impact the organization to varying degrees. And how well they do this determines whether the impact is a positive or a negative. Even something as simple as how the office floors are washed has an impact. If the office housekeeper decides to completely block access points with their approach, then either staff and or customers alike will experience unnecessary barriers to their engagement, or the floors will end up dirtier than before and require double work. Whereas choosing a systematic approach which always accommodates access needs will yield free-flowing movement and result in clean floors. Now, in both cases, the office housekeeper is making a decision and performing a service, but the latter showcases how the quality of the skill results in a service-oriented approach to delivering the service.
I hear you, Jene-Maree, and I completely agree, but it does take me back to my point earlier. Have we upskilled and reskilled our people sufficiently to empower them to make the right decisions as they execute their daily tasks? Service orientation starts at the top with our leaders. So if you have a look at Sam Walton as an example, the founder of Walmart summarized Walmart's core function by stating there is only one boss, and that's the customer. He can fire everyone from the CEO on down just by spending his money somewhere else. And I'd like us to open up this topic to the floor, and I'd like to hear from our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, service orientation is a topic relatable to us both from an organizational and a personal perspective. So right about now, there should be a poll popping up on your screens. Please vote and let us know your thoughts. How many CEOs have you fired? So Jene-Maree, while we wait for our audience to vote, this presentation really resonated with me quite a bit, because if you have a look at from a personal perspective, and I'm sure many of us sitting in the audience today can relate. There have been so many times where I've experienced a disconnected CX journey, or I've had a terrible customer experience with an organization, and I've simply never gone back to that business. And these experiences range from being transferred 10 times on a call to receiving the incorrect information, or even something as simple as the person just cuts the call because they just don't know what to do with me as a customer. And it's quite sad because if our people were upskilled and reskilled properly, I do believe that the outcome would have been different.
Absolutely, Dani. I myself can think of a couple of organizations that I've fired, not because of the products that they sell, but because of how they deliver their services. And oftentimes it goes beyond even the human engagement, although that's a big one. I've often disengaged with an organization because their digital tools were unfriendly or seemed untrustworthy for that matter. But before we get into a rant about our poor customer experiences, and we've got many, let's have a look at our poll results and some of the reasons customers fire the CEO. So firstly, thank you to everybody for participating in the poll, and it's quite interesting. I must say we've got about just under half of the votes submitted where individuals haven't fired any CEOs, which is quite interesting, and it means that clearly the people that they are supporting are getting the job done right. But then there's also another, just more than half, 56% to be exact, who have fired at least 1 to 10 different CEOs based on their customer experiences. And if you think about that, that's 50% of those organizations that, of the organizations in question here, that have actually lost clientele based on their service orientation. Now it begs the question, when we are looking at this internally, I mean, we're acting as customers in this scenario, but it makes me wonder how many people have fired us as CEO, our CEO, for that matter. And these are sometimes the kind of stats that one doesn't get back, but there is a way to reduce customer attrition in all reality, and that's by implementing proper service-orientated strategies across the board. And let's also have a look at some of the reasons why we fired the CEO. So one of the reasons that we fired the CEO is because the customer's expectations were not met, or we had a poor customer service experience, or they broke their promise to the customer. The customer is struck by that buyer's remorse. The customer had no reason to remain loyal, which is quite a big one. The customer is tempted away by a more attractive competitor. The customer doesn't see the value in what you are offering. You aren't communicating how the customer wants. And in today's world, the way we communicate is particularly of importance because people want us to be where they are. And then lastly, the customer is a bad fit for your product and service. And that's the reality. Sometimes our customers are just not suitable to our product or service. But either way, these are just some of the many reasons that contribute to customer attrition. What is important to recognize is that in our current landscape, customer attraction, retention, and attrition tends to hinge on the state of our organization's market share in the trust economy and ability to be innovative. So what does this mean? This means that a large part of your customer's experience is based on trust in your organization. Think of when you order in. You trust that the order you placed and paid for with Uber Eats or similar will arrive as ordered and your money won't be stolen. Or just consider your online banking. You trust that your money is as safe and secure as if it were locked in a security guarded bank vault. And most certainly, you would have given a poor star rating or written a bad review on some social platform or another should either service provider have broken your trust, thus reducing that organization's trust economy market share. Now consider the last time you were looking for a product to fulfill a specific need. Did you Google the product or product review? Did you look at the star ratings and rank your options accordingly? These are the types of actions customers take to establish whether you are trustworthy. This trust is multifaceted though, and is being tested at every step of your customer journey, which also means that every step your customer takes or doesn't need to take is an opportunity for you to increase your trust economy market share. It goes beyond that though, especially in the context of service orientation in Industry 4.0, where we as organizations hold and process customer data that your customer trusts and expects is secure, which means that while we are designing and building our service-oriented organizations, that the technologies we procure or develop must be evaluated against security and ethical criteria. On the other hand, your ability or inability to innovate also makes a significant impact with both our customers and competitor base moving beyond the limitations of geography. Opportunity and competition has never been greater. We need to be innovative with our offerings to maintain a unique value proposition. We need to be innovative with our operations to improve efficiencies and internal customer experiences, and we need to be innovative with our external customer experiences to improve attraction and retention and reduce attrition.
Thanks, Jene-Maree. You've actually hit the nail on the head. You know, there's the age-old saying that first impressions last. And while I do believe that that statement isn't cast in stone, it does ring true for many of us as a society. The customer's first impression of your company is shaped by the perception of your brand across all interactions. This perception is essential for businesses since it guarantees the longevity of our organizations. If we look, perception and interaction are the two fundamental pillars of customer experience, whereas customer service is merely a component of that experience and often refers to the assistance that you receive when you have a problem or make a reactive purchase of a product or a service. When we take into account the many points of view presented here this afternoon, I'm sure that we are all left wondering, what do service-oriented businesses have in common and what should be included in service orientation strategies to ensure success? So I think the first step in drafting organizational strategies would be for us to put our consumer hats on and put the needs of our customers first. I then think that, as mentioned before, everyone from the CEO to the security guard need to drive service orientation. We need to help the customer and practice effective listening. The customer is not always right. Some of us are quick to fire that CEO, but do we know when to fire the customer or to terminate the relationship? It's important for us to remember that a sale is not simply a sale. People tend to buy people before they purchase the product or the service. And then for us to address the process as a journey, focus on every single touch point within your CX and your UX journeys. Lastly, and this point sits very close to my heart, our staff are our customers too.
So Dani, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is much like this quote from Zappa. Even if our organization sells a product, we need to change our organizational mindsets to one that recognizes that we sell a service first and foremost, and part of our service is providing a product.
Jene-Maree, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I urge our audience to connect with us after this presentation should they wish to learn more about service orientation strategies, which are covered in our Workforce 2030 service orientation model. Our team have dropped a link to our website in the chat for anyone wanting to find out more info.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jade, in advance. All right, Dani, now I'm sure the audience would like to get a better idea of what a service orientation strategy looks like.
So, Jene-Maree, research has indicated there to be 4 elements to a successful service orientation strategy. Service leadership, which is leading by example with a clear vision for service excellence. Then we look at service encounter practices, which looks at customer satisfaction and employee empowerment. The third one to address is service system practices, which is service failure prevention and recovery, as well as the use of cutting-edge technology and service standards. And then the last one is human resource practices, investments made in upskilling your workforce and service rewards. Let's make sure the employee rewards are clearly linked and driven internally for customer satisfaction and service behavior. all of which needs to be underpinned by a very strong and effective communication strategy.
Absolutely. And if we quickly look at the following graphic, we'll see that effective communication is key if we consider all the stakeholders involved in this strategy, not to mention the layers that each represents. Service orientation is an activity executed both internally and externally. And in all reality, you first need to implement proper service orientation within your organization, among your different departments, among the different teams, and among the different team members of the team to grow a culture of service orientation. And by doing so, with proper service orientation strategies linked to your customer experience, that culture of service orientation will naturally pull through to your customer and they will experience it. You could have the best customer experience or customer oriented strategy for your customers externally, but that will never be realized if your people internally are not experiencing that on a day-to-day basis, whether it be when they engage with one another or with the tools that support them. Consequently, it's important to recognize that your customer sits both internally and externally in order to make this a success.
Definitely, definitely. There's the bell. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have some fun. Right, the question is as follows. Name any two of the four elements of service orientation.
Jay will pop this question in the chat for you guys to give you an opportunity to answer the question while we move into Q&A, and the winners will be announced at the end of the session. So stay tuned and good luck, yeah.
Okay, so I think that, Jene-Maree, with every shift comes a new obstacle, and it's no different when we speak about technology. There is a common misconception that the more we incorporate technology into our services, our processes, and our organizations, the more we sacrifice on service orientation and quality. And that's not the case. However, how many times have we insisted on speaking to somebody on the phone because an automated journey has failed to fulfill our goals? And then why is it that organizations do fail when they incorporate tech systems?
Well, Dani, look, I think the challenge that you pose looks a little different for everyone, depending on your industry and your business specifically and what services and products you offer. But on a fundamental level, often the reason why these failures occur is because of ineffective transformation strategies. The people internally who are responsible ultimately for ensuring that these journeys are executed, supported, and processed correctly don't necessarily know the what's, the where's, the how's, and most importantly, the why's. So if your people internally haven't actually bought into it, when you are consulting with them to develop these journeys and implement them, you're only getting half of what they can really give you if they were excited and bought in and understood why they're doing this. And then B, if people don't know that why, they actually don't drive it. They don't become those change champions because to them, it's starting to happen to them and they're not part of that change. So you get that organizational immune system kicking in, and ultimately that causes these failures. Whereas effective transformation strategies would definitely need to consider change elements, upskilling our people, involving them in the decision-making process, everything from what the processes look like to what the new internal structures look like to what technologies are used. So I think fundamentally that is a lot of most of the time where that breakdown comes to. And if I have to reflect a little, we as Omni, we officially started implementing our digital transformation strategy around about 2018. And way back then, the amount of kickback, that internal immune system was very strong. Yet, you've got your key stakeholders, your champions that are driving this through and supporting it and having all of those challenging conversations to enlighten colleagues around what are the benefits, what's the return, which goals these sorts of changes supports, so they can climb on board and drive that change with you. And it took us internally, I will say, it took some time for people to start buying in. And even today, I can say there are some people that haven't necessarily entirely bought into it. But when COVID hit, I will tell you, we were way more prepared than most other organizations to make such a shift, both from an operational point of view, but also from a product point of view. So the impact in terms of moving from a manual, let's just call it a manual process, to an automated process was a lot simpler. And in fact, I believe one of our greatest saving graces that we were so prepared already.
You see, the thing is that there's two sides to every coin. So you've got the tech and change champions, and you've got all of these things in place. But to your point, you need to have organizational buy-in, because like, to my point earlier on of there being two sides to the coin, what about 24-hour accessible interaction from organizations? We didn't have that before. What about a rise in employee efficiency in the business world? I mean, whilst automation is quite scary for some people, and change is change, but it's uncomfortable, we also need to have a look at all of the things employees from the top to the bottom are able to do with automation in place, with transformation in place. I mean, if you look at enhanced consistency, why do we follow internal journeys? Why is everyone using the same CRM system? It's not because we're trying to micromanage you, not at all. It's because if something happens tomorrow and Jene-Maree is sick, Dani can simply go onto the CRM system and pick up with the client exactly where Jene-Maree left off. And in the other end of it, nobody likes to talk about the stickiness of the post-COVID implications in terms of organizations and employee wellness and all of those things. However, automation supports the lack of hands in the office. And whilst we're not saying that automation and tech take away the hands, what we are saying is when I look at my own job in sales and I go, gosh, I really wish that there was a way that this email could get automated. It would save me so much time. That's the beauty of incorporating new technology into your everyday working world. And I think, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I think let's have a look and see if our audience are ready to talk to us.
So, ladies and gentlemen, just to position our Q&A session maybe a little, we've opted to have a slightly more extended Q&A session to allow us to answer your questions, to engage on things that are relevant in your space. We also have a couple of questions that came through during the week from our community. So please do pop them into the chat and we'll be sure to cover them. But while we give you guys an opportunity to engage, Dani, you raise a very valid point. And I think there's a bit of a fear, because as much as automation will make things more efficient, and it really does. That's my job. My job is to take people, technology, and processes and find those efficiencies and implement them. And the reality is that people are a little fearful of, is this going to replace me? And the reality is no, it's not going to replace you. But organizations do have a responsibility towards their people to upskill them so that they are not replaced, so that the mundane, repeatable tasks, the things that can be computationally processed, are done and off their plates, so that those individuals, in all honesty, can focus on that human element, can be available to take that call because this individual needs a call or would like a call. So that frees up that time. And initially, it does seem like a little bit more hard work from the individuals because they have to learn new systems and a new process. But before they blink, that challenge is over and they're just reaping the benefits and rewards from these new implemented automations. We've got some comments here in the chat. We've got Cassandra going, automation should never replace the human element, which is often missing when organizations overtly rely on technology to replace the hands, as Dani noted. So yeah. True. Would you like to comment on that, Dani?
Thanks, Jene-Maree. Yes, in the beginning, when we spoke about technology and 4IR and all these things, and there was this huge fear. Oh my word, our staff will lose their jobs, or I'm going to lose my job, or what's going to happen to our kids? And I think that I hope that we've taken a little bit of a step back and gone, actually, it's definitely not about replacing the job. It's about bringing the human connection and technology together to enhance what the job is.
Absolutely. And Lisa's made a comment here around now we are dealing with hyper automation and the impact is great. We cannot afford to not engage the full value chain to ensure efficiencies. And that's really true. If we are, as organizations, are not automating and are not implementing efficiencies and are not trying to stay as up to date as possible at the rate that technology is evolving, we're going to find ourselves in not 10 years, but in 2 years where we're actually dated. We don't have such a long time period anymore to sort of play catch up. And the customer expects what it is used to. And currently, if we look at it, nowadays, customers expect you to be available 24/7. They want to see that AI chatbot, even if it's AI, because they know they can put in their query, get a response,
It's
and then
something.
and then they want to know that once they've done that, that if they need a human, they can engage on a human with a human. I don't know if you did your tax via e-filing online at all, but they've got a fantastic chat bot there. Like kudos to SARS on their chat bot. When you put in your query, it will find you at least 5 results that are similar to what you've got going there. And then immediately, but would you like to talk to an agent? We'll put you through. And legitimately, there's actually somebody that's responding and replying and all going to give you that call. So I think they've executed it quite well where they've covered the various channels that different individuals like to engage. And I think us as organizations, we need to consider who are our customers, what are their needs, and what are they used to.
Definitely, Jene-Maree, definitely.
So we've got another comment here. CX requires a feeling of personalization and therefore the design framework is even more complex than before. Now that is absolutely so true. I think for me on my end, it's the simpler we want things for our end users, the more complicated it is at the back. And often we don't know whether we need to prioritize the people, the process, or the technology in the organization. I mean, it's quite a big challenge when you're putting in these transformations. But the reality is that neither one of them are actually more important than the other. They're much like a tripod that supports the organizational goals. So your goals need to be really clearly defined to enable the people on the ground who are making the changes, who are doing these implementations, who are doing the work, to make those micro decisions that support that goal. And it's much like a tripod. When you adjust one leg, you need to go and adjust another leg, otherwise you're going to be a little wonky. And when you go through transformation, you do go through different little phases of wonkiness as you sort of fine tune and adjust things. I mean, the decision making goes all the way down to this field on the CRM system. Does it meet our organization's analytics and data needs? Because today we can't do without analytics and data because there's just so much, and we need to be able to get good insight and make good decisions based on the data. So you've got that sort of input needs, but then you've also got the human person who is the operator, the person who actually has to engage and do these things. You have to consider them when you're making those decisions in terms of how you're doing it, when you're doing it, what part of the process does it fall into. And then you have to consider how do these implementations impact those processes? And are people able and willing, or do they require upskilling and convincing to shift and adjust with those processes?
Yeah. To your point, Jene-Maree, I'm actually glad that you mentioned the tripod, because if we rewind back, when we went into hard lockdown, businesses prioritized tech over their people, and people suffered. Not many said it, or they said it, but they had to push on. But people definitely suffered because we don't know what we don't know. All that we all knew was that we need to migrate online. If I think about our own business, we were using Skype at the time. I mean, we've got an amazing technology department, But I mean, I think it took us 2 months or less than 2 months to shift completely over to MS Teams. And this was only possible in our space because automation started way back then, before that. So think about how it affected people before. And for me personally, I'm glad I do see the tripod when talking to clients. I do see the tripod when engaging with family and friends about their work experience, because we have shifted to, okay, tech, human, organizational objectives. It wasn't like that a couple of years ago. So I think we've got that was a really dark time for me, but I'm learning. And then we've got okay, you know what, as an organization, we're on the right track. So let's keep up with the trends, let's keep tweaking, let's keep adjusting. And that is in essence what technology is. Technology is not stagnant. We keep evolving, we keep moving.
We've got a question that's coming here. Sorry to break your word.
No,
From a personal perspective, what has been the most challenging obstacle you've encountered in the last year?
Oh, Jene-Maree, would you like to take that one first?
I think for me in my role, one of the most challenging obstacles is actually getting the clearly defined needs. So if you consider that when we're implementing these technologies and these transformation strategies and we're exploring new products in different formats, it is all new for everyone, which means that even your existing subject matter experts in their area, all right, are finding themselves in a space where they don't know what that new looks like either. So they don't truly know what that need is. And for some, they've been doing the same thing for a considerable amount of time. So just to suddenly try and reimagine that can be quite a tall order when you're still doing your BAU activities that require actually all of your focus. So one of the challenges is really around clearly identifying what those needs are so that you can actually start putting together implementation strategies to support or solve those needs in a way that meets organizational objectives, supports the people component, both internal and external, as well as how do the processes now need to adapt to support both or to incorporate both technology and the people component. And for you, Dani, what has been your most challenging obstacle in the last year?
Okay, I will be completely transparent in my answer. A very challenging obstacle for me has been keeping up with the learning experience. So we have an amazing CRM system, and every time there are changes and whenever there are updates or new rules being put in, it's a matter of going back and learning. It's a matter of going back to the blueprint. So it's been a year, honestly, of lots of reading, lots of understanding, lots of engagement, and then lots of putting that forward. It's been nothing but a pleasure to be able to automate a sales journey on our public courses, or watch our internal automation happen quicker. And it's been an amazing journey, but it has not come without a lot of learning. And I think that when you are a large organization, you probably end up slipping through the cracks, but we have the luxury of sitting, talking, engaging, whether it's over a quick coffee, whether it's in a meeting. So I think it's been a push, but it's definitely been a lot of learning this year.
I couldn't agree with you more. For me personally, I learn every day. There isn't a day that goes by without learning. We've got a comment here from Kaz. Says a recent survey by Gartner noted that on average, employees have to navigate 1,200 applications or technology aspects on a daily basis. That is huge. It is critical for organizations and leaders to assist employees to be less fragmented, which impacts customer experience. And you know, Kaz, to your point, to Gartner's point, it is so true. When I'm busy putting these things together, I often stop and go think to myself, okay, end user. Actually, I do it very regularly, almost on every decision, but you stop and you go to yourself, end user. what is this user all needing to navigate? How can we bring this sort of into the fold so that it lessens the impact? How can we make it feel or seem similar or the same as other things that they operate on to sort of lessen the amount of learning and cognitive flexibility required to move between tasks and activities which happen on various applications. So definitely, I don't know, Dani, I think this really truly talks to your experience and challenges that you've just noted yourself.
Definitely, Jene-Maree. And I see we've got Lisa as well going. Another driving force is a huge demand towards self-service channels. In addition, we're living in a data-driven world. Absolutely. Big data. We need data for the effective decision making and allowing for real-time adjustment and navigation of the immersive systems to work design process and human applications. 100% Lisa. And we've got, okay, Jade, we've passed Jade's question. Yes, Dani, improve the employee experience, EX for improved CX. Lastly, my observation is an empathetic engagement with customers to help them solve problems that will enhance and bolster relationships. Definitely. And I think, Lisa, to your point, that's what we all want. In any department within an organization, we want our customers to be authentically happy with our products and our services. We want them to go out and talk to their families and their friends, but also we want to know that they'll come back at every single turn because the brand spoke louder than anything else. The service and the journey spoke louder than anything else.
I can just add a comment to Lisa's there in terms of the self-service. Now, self-service has become exceptionally popular and has been driven quite a bit lately, especially with AI and our algorithms across the board becoming much better, well-informed, and also various service providers actually now offering these types of technologies. Now, the truth is, we do find ourselves with a very big customer base who, obviously depending on your customer, but just in general terms, who prefer to use self-service. I don't have time to wait for somebody to hear a response or to wait for your journey to catch up with my needs. I want what I want and I want it now, and I'm happy to help myself. And I think it is important to recognize those customers and attempt as best as we possibly can to support that type of need. At the same time, nobody should actually throw the baby out of the bathwater and get rid of any other type of journey. Actually, we need to have multiple journey options for our customer. So the one that prefers the self-service, automated, instant, I'm happy to operate in this space, kind of service has access to that kind of service, but then still have an alternate which allows for the process to bring you into that personal engagement, that direct contact, that human touch that a lot of people still yearn and look for. So very, very good comment there. Thank you, Lisa. We've got another one here from Jade. In terms of technology advancing at speed, does MVP and testing new systems create chaos or a sense of shortism? Whew. So this one, it's a bit of both, actually, in my personal opinion. So MVP testing is what allows us to get to market quickly. And in all reality, as MVP design methodologies dominate our industries, especially in the technological space, customers are quite accustomed to versions. So you've got your beta version, you go into your A version, and then after that, you've got version numbers that go up into infinity. So software in its own right as a foundation has already sort of set that trend and level of expectation with the external public. MVP development methodologies have reinforced it, which means that from an expectation point of view, it falls in line. It does create a bit of chaos because often what happens from an organizational point of view is we start off with MVP, and an MVP really means that you're going to go back with all of your feedback cycles and do your improvements and do your updates and do your rollouts. And the customer expects that that is going to be what future looks like. So they might buy in now and go, oh, well, you can't do this and you can't do that and I can't do that. But let's just give them some time. But if you never actually come back and revisit and take that
Mm.
feedback and put in those developments and do your releases, then it does create a bit of chaos, because now you sit with multiple products potentially that sit in this MVP state, which doesn't actually completely satisfy the customer. And that then causes that chaos. When are we focusing on what? How are we supposed to focus on it? I've only got so many hours in a day, and we're all busy with development and business as usual at the same time. So there can be a bit of chaos to it. However, that without that chaos, we'll get nowhere. We won't actually be able to make any strides, because the rate of change is so rapid. If we try and develop a product end to end and then release, then we're behind. Then our competitors have already beat us to it, and we actually don't stand a chance, even if our product is better. No one's going to ever see it. So you have to weigh up that chaos or perception of chaos to the value and the reward, the return. And then I don't really think it creates a sense of shortism per se, except that in the manner that one would go, this is what it looks like for now, but I can expect it to change.
Yeah.
Great question. Thank you, Jade. Dani, I think we've got some questions here from our community. How do you determine what aspects of your internal and external CX journeys should be automated and what should remain manual?
So, Jene-Maree, for me, and this is just me, I like all of the administrative type things to be automated. I still want to touch the clients. I still want to check in with them. I still want the human connection. So if I go onto the website and I'd like to secure a booking, lovely. But then there's still somebody touching and going, hi, Dani, listen, is everything okay? Do you need more information? So I am a stickler for the human connection to stay in the golden thread. I do, however, believe things like quote requests, automated responses, invitations or meeting requests, those things can be automated in the journey. I am, however, going to say it is down to organizational objectives. What is important to you as an organization? What are your needs first? If you have just retrenched 10 people for your own reasons, okay, cool. Where do they sit and what gaps can we fill in the meantime? So if I look at pure example, you had a sales team of 10, you now are 2, but 3 of which were administrators. How can we then make the 2 that have remained, how can we make their lives easier, but still get the job done and still stretch and grow those 2 staff members?
Yeah,
So I think definitely, I definitely think it's definitely got to do with the need.
Absolutely. But of course, all of that is in light of serving the customer in whatever shape and format that comes in your space. And I think once again, your response there also just really highlights that tripod between people, technology, and processes are always in consideration. When you're looking at your people, you're considering what technology and processes are they involved in and what do they look like? Do those support them? When you're looking at technology, you're going, all right, what processes are in place and what are our people's needs? And then once again, when you're looking at processes, you're looking at the technology and the people. So it's this interaction between those 3 components that clearly come through as a very vital aspect of rolling out these strategies. Let me just check. I think we might have something in the chat. If leaders are not technology adopters, the challenge is that employees may be left unsupported. We have to place ourselves in a place of vulnerability to test and play to start the adoption process. I'm sure the techies in the room will be frowning on this now.
Okay, I completely agree with you, Kaz. Sometimes we find ourselves in a space where we need all of these things for our organizations, but our leaders themselves don't know what it is that we need. So you've got I think we need this, and then you've got your runners going with the ideas. There needs to be buy-in from the top all the way down to the bottom. And that was, I think Jean-Maree made the point earlier on of having change champions within the organization. I definitely think there are a couple of techies frowning though.
I agree, and I must say we're very fortunate in that matter, and there's that our MD Lisa. She is a driving force when it comes to technology. In fact, she is my best tester. I can 100% rely on her to test and give me feedback, but good feedback that can be used to improve and enhance any of these implementations,
Definitely.
whether it be a customer experience journey that we're testing or an internal operational journey, on it. And it makes a difference because when everyone sees management engaging, promoting, when everybody continuously gets that positive reinforcement towards transformation, it starts becoming part of the culture. I mean, that's why we say lead by example. And this is very true in this case. And the reality, though, is that if everybody at every level is leading, then we're all moving in the same direction. But Lisa also raises quite an important comment here in terms of the challenges that come into play when we start adopting these different technologies, because we've got a multitude of channels for communication. So now you've got 5 to 10 channels to communicate with customers on either Facebook, WhatsApp, email, telephone call, Twitter, you name it. There's a multitude LinkedIn channels where we are trying to communicate with our customer. And then internally, we've also got a multitude of channels, whether it be Teams, through your CRM system, through your ticket system, through your. So there's quite a lot of communication channels, and managing that can be quite a challenge. And also managing the expectation of what are you communicating where?
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Dani?
Jene-Maree, I can go on for hours and hours and hours, but I am going to say that our time has almost run out, and I do believe that we need to find our winner.
Yes.
So I think that our audience has been a little bit quiet this evening. Maybe we spoke too much. Maybe they're processing. Either way, I'm super, super happy that everyone has joined us. I do think that somebody did post a one-word answer that does link to one of the 4 elements in the chat. I am looking. Tennille. At 4:29, the word customer was mentioned. Can we confirm? I know that you mentioned earlier on that you have a terrible connection. Can you give us a thumbs up if you were answering the competition, please? I hope we still have Tennille with us.
No, Tennille seems to have left.
Connectivity issues, because I see that she's still Tennille's still here, but okay, we can touch base with her or him after the show, not a problem.
All right, so Dani, I'd like to make a suggestion, seeing as we had very slow fingers this evening, or perhaps a few people felt they couldn't quite remember what the different elements were of the service orientation strategy. So I would like to suggest us doing a random draw from our attendee list and then notifying them in the week that they've been selected as winners, because I wouldn't want anyone to miss out on this opportunity.
Absolutely, Jene-Maree. I definitely agree. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be staying online for a few minutes post the session. Should anyone have any questions or would like to process the service orientation booking with me, thank you so much, everyone, for your time. It is an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you all on the 30th of November, where we have our very own Lisa facilitating computational thinking at 21st century skill. Bookings can be made on our LinkedIn event page, or you can head over to our website. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you to the Omni team behind this initiative for honoring us with the opportunity to engage, share, and collaborate with you all. We really, really appreciate it. Have a good one.